The boat that sailed into the silver mist. I found you at just the right hour, not too early, when the city still wore its jangling bracelets and bright little vanities, not too late, when even memory begins to fold itself away, and the world grows thin as old lace. No, I found you in that kinder hour, between when New Orleans has lowered her voice but not yet gone to sleep, when the streets are still warm from the day, and the night has begun laying its cool silver hands across the stones. I was waiting beneath the balcony, where moonlight has caught in the ironwork and hung there in quiet threads. Dew has gathered along the black curls of meadow, and each drop held a tiny, trembling lantern inside it. The air smelt of magnolia, old wood, and that secret river scent that moves beneath the city's perfume, if one knows how to notice it. I have always known how to notice it. Cats are excellent students of hidden things. Far away, somewhere past the corners and courtyards and shuttered rooms, a trumpet had become only the memory of a trumpet. The note drifted through the quarter, softened by distance, smudged at the edges of fog, less like music now than the idea of music lingering in the dark, because it was not yet ready to leave. Street lamps glowed in little pools along the narrow way. Amber dropped into shadow, and the old flagstones gave back the warmth they had been keeping all afternoon. My paws made no sound on them at all. That is one of the advantages of being a ghost, though it is also one of the advantages of being a cat. There are nights in New Orleans when the city feels built of brick and iron and old promises. On those nights, the houses seem to stand a little straighter. The shutters hold themselves firmer. Even the air has structure to it. But there are other nights when the whole place seems made of tide. The streets feel as though they could float if they wished to. The balconies lean not over pavement, but over some slower current no human surveyor ever thought to map. The lamps flicker like markers at the edge of a harbor. The city remembers, in its old wet bones, that water has always had a say here. Tonight was one of those tide nights. I could feel it in the way the darkness gleamed. I could feel it in the hush between sounds. I could feel it in the soft pull beneath the ordinary world, as though something out beyond the visible streets had already begun calling us by the gentlest possible means. I had seen the boat before. Not everyone does. Not everyone is meant to. It does not arrive for those who want spectacle, or answers, or a tale they can hold up later and explain in neat, bright pieces. The boat appears for different reasons than that. It appears when a person is weary in the way that cannot be solved by effort. It appears when walking would ask too much. It appears when someone needs to be carried rather than led. That distinction matters. Some stories are for walking, some are for lanterns in doorways, and little turns of courage, taken one footstep at a time. But this one is not such a story. This one asks nothing sharp of you. There is no danger tonight, no chase, no locked gate, no test tucked behind the curtain waiting to see whether you are clever enough, brave enough, awake enough to pass. Nothing in this night requires your edge. You may set your edge down. All you need to do is follow slowly. So come along, Cher. Leave the tighter part of your thoughts where they are for now. Let them sit behind shuttered windows a little longer. I will not take you anywhere unkind. I know the softer roads of this city. I know the places where New Orleans stops pretending to be only streets and buildings and remembers what it learned from the river long before any of us arrived. There is a narrow way just ahead, one most people pass without seeing, though it has been there all along. A single lantern flickers at its mouth as though keeping watch. The air has already changed there, cooler, wetter, looser somehow, as if the city itself has begun unlacing its stays. Come with me. On certain nights in New Orleans, the quickest way out of the mind is not through a door, but over water. The street to the water. I led you down the narrow passage, and at once the city began changing its texture around us. It was not that we had left New Orleans behind, quite the opposite. We had stepped into one of the small hidden seams where the city becomes most itself. Humans often imagine secret places as dramatic things. They want arches and passwords, gates that swing open at the touch of a special hand. But that is not how this city prefers to keep her mysteries. New Orleans likes to tuck them into plainness. A side passage between buildings, a turn where the bricks grow damp, a sliver of space behind a shuttered courtyard, a place everyone has seen and almost no one has noticed. This was such a place. On one side, shuttered windows slept behind peeling paint the color of old cream. On the other, flower pots rested on narrow sills, the blooms folded in for the night like ladies who had danced long enough. A forgotten cafe chair sat slightly askew beneath a striped awning, as though someone had risen from it only moments ago and stepped away without bothering to explain themselves. In a rain barrel, the moon had gathered in a broken silver oval. A strand of beads clung to a nail on the wall, dim now, their carnival brightness gone hushed in the dark. Beyond a half-open gate, a courtyard fountain had gone still, the basin holding a black circle of sky. New Orleans never fully sleeps. I do not believe she wants to, but she does know how to lower her voice. As we went on, the sounds behind us thinned and softened. A door shut somewhere far away, but even that seemed to happen behind fabric. Footsteps from another street arrived muted, as if wrapped in velvet. The memory of music lingered, then loosened, then became difficult to tell from the night insects singing in the heat-cooled leaves. The further we walked, the less the city felt arranged in hard lines. Corners gentled, shadows stopped looking like interruptions, and began looking like invitations. I glanced back once to make certain you were still with me, though I knew you would be. By then, your thoughts had likely begun changing shape too. Humans are curious creatures. They often think stillness means the absence of motion, when really, stillness is only a slower kind of motion. I have spent many fine hours demonstrating this from windowsills, porches, stair landings, and the warm hoods of parked cars. To be still is not to stop. It is to move at the pace of breath, at the pace of candle flames, at the pace of moonlight slipping across a floor while no one is looking. Cats understand this instinctively. It saves us a good deal of unnecessary trouble. You, I think, were beginning to understand it too. The air cooled again as we passed between two old walls molded with damp and time. Here the scent of the river came forward more clearly, not harsh, not muddy, not the rough smell of a working dock in daylight. This is the river at night, which is another creature entirely. Deep water, old wood, faint iron, a touch of wet stone, and beneath it all the long, patient breath of something that has been moving past this city before names and maps and street numbers, and will go on moving long after. I have always liked that about the river. It does not hurry because it has no need. A lantern burns further ahead, not electric and sharp, but warm and wavering, the sort of light that flatters mystery by refusing to outline it too precisely. Cypress shadows lay across the path like folded lace. Moss stirred once, very slightly, and a breeze so soft it felt borrowed from elsewhere. The passage opened then, little by little, until the walls give way and the night widens. First, we can hear the water. Not in any theatrical fashion. No crashing wave, no slap of storm, no grand announcement. Only the gentlest shifting against wood. A patient touch and answer, as though the dark itself has learned how to breathe. Then the water can be smelled, and at last it can be seen. A quiet landing waits there, nearly hidden from the streets behind it. Worn boards, silvered by damp, thick old pilings bound with rope. A little pocket of darkness held in place by wood, tide, and habit. It has the feeling of old departures, old arrivals, old trades made beneath moonlight and lamp glow. Not haunted exactly, more seasoned than that. The place carries the memory of use without any need to boast of it. New Orleans has never been a city that fully believed land and water were separate things. The streets dream of floating. The river dreams of thresholds. The old docks remember footsteps long after the feet themselves are gone. Even the houses, with all their stubborn brick and plaster and painted shutters, seem to listen for tide in their sleep. And there at the landing is the boat. It is small and wooden, old but lovingly kept. No gilding, no carved angel wings, no spectral glow performing for attention. Just a simple craft with good lines, worn edges, and the kind of steadiness that comes from having done the same quiet work for a long time. I can smell old varnish and river damp from where I stand. The side rail has been polished smooth in one place by the resting of many hands. A coil of rope lies neatly gathered near the post, as satisfying to look at as a well-made bed. The boat is still, but it is not the stillness of emptiness. It feels more like breath being held gently in the lungs. Not abandoned, merely between passengers. I move to the edge of the landing and pause there, letting you look at it properly. Then, because some invitations are met best by example, I leap lightly from the dock into the boat. It receives me with a soft creak, low and familiar, as though it knew me well enough not to bother with ceremony. The waiting boat. There now, share, come aboard. No acrobatics are required. No balancing act. No ancient reaching for the rail, as though the water is waiting to play tricks on you. This boat has no interest in making you prove yourself. It is steadier than it looks, and kinder too. Put your hand there if you like, along the smooth, worn edge. Yes, you feel it, don't you? The wood is cool at first touch, then almost warm beneath the palm, as though it has been keeping a little of the day for whoever comes next. I watch as you step down into it, and the boat answers not with a lurch, but with the gentlest settling, a small acknowledgement, the way an old chair might receive a familiar guest. There is a seat near the middle, its surface softened by time and use. A folded blanket rests beside it, as neat as if laid there moments ago by unseen hands. Perhaps no one has touched it at all. Perhaps the boat simply knows what sort of comfort is needed and arranges itself accordingly. On the streets of forgetting, stranger things have happened, and softer ones too. I move to the bow and sit with my tail wrapped neatly around my paws. From there, I can see the water, the dock, and you all at once, which is my preferred arrangement in most matters. You may have noticed there is no boatman. That troubles some people at first, though it needn't. Not every journey requires a face at the helm. In this city, some conveniences ask for a fare, some ask for a destination, some demand a map, a password, a confidence in the route. This one asks only that you stop gripping so tightly at where you have been. The boat knows enough. Whether it moves by tide or memory, or some quieter intelligence than either, I cannot say for certain, and I see no reason to pin it down. Humans are fond of explanations, in the same way they are fond of umbrella stands and labeled drawers. They like to know where a thing belongs before they will trust it. But some of the gentlest workings in the world grow shy under too much naming. Better on nights like this to let the mystery remain properly folded. You settle yourself at last, and I see your shoulders loosen by the smallest degree, then by another. The night air moves over the water in cool silk ribbons. A lantern hangs near the front of the boat, casting honey-colored light that trembles along the black surface below us. The reflection stretches and breaks and gathers itself again, a little golden path that never seems in any danger of being lost. Above us, the moon waits pale and patient, as if she sees such departures many times and approves of them all. For a while, we simply rest here. The dock stands close behind us. The pilings rise dark and familiar. The ropes keep their silence. Water touches the hull now and then with a quiet nudge, not impatient, just present. I can smell river damp, old wood, and the faint sweetness of the blanket where it has kept a trace of cedar and clean linen. Everything about the boat feels prepared, not in any formal sense, but in the way a room can feel prepared when kindness has already passed through and straightened a few things. Then comes the leaving, not all at once, not with a shove, not with a call, not even with the scrape of somebody casting off. The boat simply seems to understand that we are ready. There is a shift so slight it might be mistaken for breathing. The dock eases away from us by inches. The lantern light rocks once. Water whispers against the boards, and like that, without argument, we have begun. I have always admired departures that do not make a fuss. The landing drifts back, not dramatically. It becomes smaller, that's all, and then gentler. The dark line of the dock, the old pilings, the waiting boards, none of it feels taken from us. It merely recedes with good manners. The city behind it remains where it has always been, though already it looks less definitive, as if the night has taken a fingertip, dipped in water, and softened the edges of everything it touches. Ahead of us, the silver mist waits. You can see it now as a pale gathering over the water, luminous rather than thick, more veil than wall. It does not block the moonlight. It catches it, holds it, turns it tender. At the edges, it looks almost like breath in winter, if winter had ever learned how to be graceful in Louisiana. It hovers low over the surface at first, then rises in quiet folds, patient as silk being shaken free from a drawer. Do not worry, I want to tell you, if the shore begins to look less exact. That is part of the kindness of the journey. Not everything must remain sharply outlined in order to remain real. Cats understand drifting better than humans do. Humans so often require purpose before they will allow themselves rest. They want a reason for motion, a destination to justify stillness later, a proof that every soft thing is secretly useful. Cats have never suffered much from this confusion. We know the worth of a warm patch of sun. We know the dignity of a windowsill vigil. We know that to be carried by stillness, by heat, by hush of afternoon, by sleep itself, is reason enough. There is no shame in being held by something gentle. The boat glides on. Lantern light trembles and ripples below us. Moonlight stretches thin across the water like silver thread drawn carefully between two unseen hands. The hull makes the smallest sound now and then, a sound like a page turned in another room. Behind us, the dock becomes smaller, but not sadder. Before us, The mist silvers the edges of the boat until even the wood seems to glow from within. By the time the first folds of silver mist touch the sides of the boat, the city behind us already feels less like a place we have left than a dream that has tucked us gently into another. Drifting into the silver mist. The silver mist does not rush toward us. It gathers. This is the first kindness of it. It does not fall like weather or sweep in like a curtain yanked across the stage. It comes the way sleep itself often comes when it is in a merciful mood. Not all at once, not with spectacle, but by slow degrees. A fold here, a ribbon there, a pale unwinding over the water. It lifts from the dark surface in long, soft breaths and curls itself around the boat as though it has been waiting for us with perfect patience. Where the lantern touches, it glows. Not brightly, not in any way that asks to be admired. The glow is low and honey soft, a little gold within all that silver, the sort of light that makes even old wood look tender. The mist takes the lantern's reflection and wears it lightly, stretching it thin, breaking it gently, drawing it back together again. I can smell rain in it, and river, and something older still beneath both. Old cypress, perhaps, or moon-washed stone, or the cool breath that lingers in forgotten courtyards long after the people who once crossed them have gone to bed, gone away, gone entirely. I lift my head and taste the air. Yes, there is a trace of all these things. Damp bark, worn marble, a sweetness so faint it might once have been jasmine. The silver mist has gathered from every quiet place the night knew how to keep. The boat moves on without effort. There is no splash of oars, no churn, no engine insisting upon itself, only the hush of motion, the smallest shifting along the hull, the lantern swaying once in a while. The water touches wood in a voice so slow it is nearly only feeling. We drift deeper, and the mist thickens and gentles, thickens and gentles, until the world seems made not of edges, but of nearness. At first, shapes pass through it in softened outlines, a blur of an old piling, dark at the base and silvered along one side, a cypress knee rising from the water like a knuckle of the earth remembering itself, a distant point of light that may have been a porch lantern, or a reflection of a star laid low, or simply one of those small truths the night prefers not to clarify. Roof lines that seem to hover without houses attached to them. The still, thin silhouette of a heron standing motionless as thought. Nothing in the mist startles. Nothing lunges into meaning. Everything appears as though already at peace with being only partly seen. That, too, is a kind of comfort. Humans often imagine that rest will arrive in the form of answers. They think the mind will quiet once every shadow has been named, once every loose thread has been knotted, once the last bright little uncertainty has been brought indoors and catalogued. But the silver mist does not take people where they ask to go. It takes them where they can rest. Those are not always the same place. In fact, they are very seldom the same place at all. The boat knows this. The mist knows it. The water certainly knows it. On we go. Around us, sound begins behaving differently. New Orleans is a city that understands performance. In daylight and revelry, she lets every note and footstep and shouted feeling show its face. But out here on the water and under the mist, the city becomes almost shy. The noises that reach us do so softened beyond any need to be deciphered. A church bell comes from very far off, wrapped in velvet by fog and distance. Somewhere else, so far away it seems to come from another decade, a saxophone exhales a note that blurs in the damp until it's hardly music at all, only a human sigh given brass for a body. Even the insects seem to hum from behind lace. It no longer feels as if we are moving through geography. It feels as if we are moving through degrees of quiet. The boat drifts further. The lantern sways. The mist glows. The water keeps carrying us. There is nothing to do but be carried. I remain near the bow, my tail tucked neatly around my paws, my eyes holding the lantern light and two small green gold moons. I am entirely at ease, and because I am, I hope you might be too. Cats are useful in this way. We lend permission simply by not hurrying. We approve of softness by inhabiting it without apology. The mist rises higher around us. The last clear suggestions of the landing have gone. Even the idea of shore has loosened. There is only boat and lantern and moonlight draw thin as silk over water. Sometimes a shape appears and slides away again. A balcony reflects upside down in the dark, its ironwork wavering as though the water is trying on architecture for a moment, just to see how it feels. A few flower petals float past that look like scraps of old carnival silk. A shuttered window lights from within for the briefest breath, then is gone, or perhaps only turned at the angle where light ceases to explain itself. Beads of moisture gather along the rail beside you, each one round and trembling, each one a tiny moon, too small to burden the sky. We drift further. The mist thickens and gentles. The lantern sways. The city lowers its voice. New Orleans has always been a water city, no matter how insistently she dresses herself in balconies and bricks. Beneath the sown streets, bayou moods still stir. Beneath the straight lines on maps, hidden canals of memory curve where they please. The river holds an old authority here, old enough not to need to raise its voice. Even the neighborhoods that pretend to be wholly inland seem after midnight to remember some earlier agreement with tide and marsh and rain. This city has never fully trusted the boundary between land and water. It knows a street can dream of floating. It knows a house can keep a little dock hidden in its bones. Out here, in the silver mist, I can feel all those old watery loyalties waking one by one. The further we go, the less urgent everything becomes. Not vanished, not solved, merely less upright. Thoughts on the shore tend to stand upright. They line themselves along the mine like stern little figures under gaslight, each one insisting upon its own importance. This must be remembered, that must be answered, this bruise must be touched again, that unfinished thing must be rehearsed until it glows. But thoughts on the water learn how to lie down. They lengthen, they loosen, they stop holding their shoulders so high. They let the dark carry some of the weight. The boat drifts further, the lantern sways. The mist glows around the bow in pale folds. The water holds us. There is nothing to do but be carried. Once from somewhere beyond the mist, a scent of jasmine drifts by without any vine to account for it. A bell rings only a single note, faint and bright as a spoon touched to crystal, then gives itself back to silence. I can see the blurred suggestion of a roof line, and beneath it, the darker blur of what have might been a sleeping gallery. And for a moment, it seems the whole city has taken to hovering lightly above its own reflection. Then even those gentle sights grow fewer. This is the way of such journeys. At first, the mind enjoys the details. It tastes them, counts them, arranges them like shells along the sill. But after a while, the details themselves begin to grow drowsy. They recline. They stop performing. The world does not disappear. It simply ceases to insist on being fully looked at. We drift further. The mist thickens and gentles. The lantern sways. The city lowers its voice. The water keeps carrying us. There is nothing to do but be carried. I curl down a little more, chain lifting just above my paws, and watch the silver fold after silver fold gather and pass. The boat makes the smallest sound now and then, and like a page turned in another room, the moonlight stretches thinner. The lantern's glow moves across the mist in warm, breathing shapes. The water beneath us is dark, but not empty. It feels wide, patient, receiving. It does not ask us to understand it. It only holds, and holds, and holds. By now the shore is nearly gone, or perhaps it has only withdrawn far enough not to trouble us. It makes little difference. There is only mist, lantern, water, moon, and the steady certainty that we are being carried somewhere the night has already prepared for rest. The softened world beyond the shore, after a while, though no clocks have said how long, the mist begins to thin, only a little. Not enough to break the spell, not enough to return us to any ordinary world. It merely loosens, as if a hand has passed through silver lace and parted it by the gentlest degree. Through that opening, the place beyond begins to show itself, not all at once. A dark line of cypress first, the roots hidden in the stillness. their branches hung with moss that droops like old green lace left out under moonlight. Then the pale suggestion of a wall, half submerged, garden stone meeting water in a quiet arrangement no architect would have approved and no dream would have improved. Then an old marble step descending into black water where no foot seems expected, only reflection. Further on, a wrought iron gate appears more clearly in the surface below than in the air above, as though the water has taken greater care in remembering it. The moonlight seems brighter here, not because it has grown stronger, but because everything around it has agreed to be quiet. I lift myself from my curl and sit up again, slow and untroubled. Ahead of us lies a softened world, a New Orleans after New Orleans. The city's sleeping face turned toward the water. There are traces of courtyards, traces of galleries, traces of gardens, but all of them gentled, as if someone has taken the usual city and steeped it in moonlight until only the hush remains. Some places are not meant to be found by searching. That is another thing humans are slow to believe. They set out with lanterns and lists and good determined shoes, thinking every worthy destination must reward the hunt. But there are places that do not open for pursuit. They are reached only by drifting long enough, only by loosening the grip of arrival, only by allowing the water or the night or the part of the heart that knows how to stop striving to take the lead. This is such a place. The boat moves more slowly now, not because it has grown weary, but because hurry has no business here. We pass a half-seen courtyard statue, softened by mist and age, its face too blurred to be anyone in particular, which makes it kinder somehow. Lilies float nearby, though no formal pond encloses them. A few white blossoms open like cool stars upon the water, and beside them broad round leaves drift without urgency. On one side of the lagoon, if lagoon it is, a row of balconies hang above the dark, their reflections deeper and steadier than the ironwork itself. They do not loom, they listen. From very far away comes the suggestion of a brass band, but softened nearly past recognition. No bright procession, no swaggering joy, only the hush of horns slowed and blurred until they sound almost like a lullaby remembered by the water. Old river stairs show themselves next, worn silver by time, leading down into stillness. And there, further out, a small lantern floats alone on the surface, as if set there by no visible hand, making a little amber orbit for itself in the moon-drawn dark. The boat slows further. The rocking grows so slight, it feels less like motion than breathing. This, I think, is the part humans most need and least know how to ask for. The world is forever pressing little ledgers into your hands. Remember this. Answer this. Keep this promise. Replay that mistake. Carry this bruise. Count these losses. Polish these expectations until they can see themselves in you. Even tenderness can become a burden when it is forced to stand at attention all day long. And not all remembering is faithful. Some remembering is simply a form of clenching. Here on this water, one may set down what does not need to be carried through the night, not thrown away, not denied, only set down. The boat does not dock in any ordinary sense. There is no cleat, no reaching hand, no jolt against boards. It merely comes to a place where the water has gone so still it seems ready to receive whatever weariness might lean close enough to loosen. We remain afloat, held in a hush between arrival and sleep. The lantern near the bow sways once and settles. The floating lantern further away drifts in its slow amber circle. Moss hangs from the cypress like old lace leaves. The moon lays a silver path over the surface, and the path asks nothing at all. I turn and look at you. There is no need to climb out, no threshold to cross with your feet. This is an inward sort of harbor, the kind reached without shoes, without explanation, without any labor except the one you had already performed by allowing yourself to be carried this far. Sometimes, in places like this, a passenger notices one thought become lighter, not gone, merely lighter. A thought that has spent the evening standing rigidly in the mind may sit down at last. A small ache may become less determined to be felt. An old sentence, one that has been repeating inside the chest for too many nights in a row, may go drowsy halfway through its own familiar wording and decide not to finish. A worry may loosen at one end the way ribbon loosens in water, no longer tied so cleverly around itself. I have watched such things happen many times, from the rail of a balcony, from the foot of a bed, from the hush beside a window where rain has just begun, from the small blue hour before dawn when even grief must blink. As a ghost, I know something about what remains and what changes. I know that presence does not depend on clinging. I know that softness is not disappearance. The things that truly belong to the soul are not washed away by gentleness. Love stays. Memory stays. The names that matter stay. What eases here is not the heart, but its needless bracing. Not the truth, but the sharpness with which the day has begun pressing against your ribs. The boat rocks gently. The water holds us. The moon keeps its silver path upon the surface. Some thoughts, if you have watched closely enough, might have looked like lanterns being set gently afloat, one by one, not abandoned, only placed where they no longer have to be gripped. Some worries might have seemed to unlatch and unlace, loosening in the mind the way ribbons loosen when dipped in water. Some remembered heaviness might have shifted just enough to show its underside, and on the underside there is often less terror than in the clenching. We remain here. The boat rocks so lightly it feels like breathing. The moss stirs once. The lantern sways and settles. The water holds and holds and holds. Nothing in that hidden place tries to dazzle. It does not ask to be admired or solved or recounted later in perfect detail. It only offers what many hearts are denied in waking life, a place where no one is demanding that every thought remain upright, every bruise remain bright, every unfinished thing keep marching across the mind in orderly shoes. The moon laid down its silver path. The water receives whatever softens. The boat rocks once, then hardly at all. There is nothing to do but rest inside the resting. After a while, the distinction between the floating lantern on the water and the lantern hanging at our bow seems less important. The distinction between the reflection of the gate and the gate itself grows blurred. Even the difference between the city we have left and this sleeping, watery version of it grow tender at the edges. This is how New Orleans keeps some of her deepest mercies, not by separating the worlds cleanly, but by letting one soften into another until the heart can pass between them without a scrape. I stay near the bow and watch over the hush, as is my habit. You are still yourself. The city is still itself. Nothing has been erased. Only the grip has eased. Only the overholding has tired itself out. Only the sharp little hooks of the day have begun, one by one, to loosen interest in fastening so tightly. The boat rocks lightly. The moon lies down its silvery path. The moss hangs in old green lace. The moon holds us in its dark, patient hands, and there, in that softened world beyond the shore, it becomes possible to feel how little needed proving, how little needed carrying just then. Just how much of rest is simply the permission to stop standing guard over every door inside the mind. What the mist takes, what it leaves. After a while, in that quiet place where the boat has slowed and the water has become still enough to feel like receiving, the silver mist draws a little nearer again, not thicker than before, not brighter, only nearer. It moves along the surface in soft pale folds and brushes lightly against the sides of the boat, as if checking that we are comfortable there, that nothing is pressing too hard against the heart, that the night has done its work with sufficient tenderness. The lantern at the bow sways once, then steadies. Its reflection lies across the water like a thread of honey drawn through dark silk. Moss hangs unmoving from the cypress branches. The moon keeps its patient, silvery path. And all around us, the hidden world remains hushed enough to let even small heaviness begin loosening its grip. The mist is particular in what it takes. That is important. It does not take what belongs to the soul. It does not steal names or love or the deep truths one must carry honestly through life. It does not reach inside the heart and empty it. That would be a cruel sort of magic, and the softer roads of the city have no use for cruelty. No, the silver mist is gentler and wiser than that. It takes only what does not need to sit upright in the mind all night long, a thought repeated too many times, a task still pacing in circles, a small embarrassment polished to a shine much brighter than it deserves, the echo of a conversation that has already ended but refuses to leave the room, the habit of bracing, the little hard clench around some unfinished thing that cannot be mended at this hour, no matter how faithfully you rehearse it. These are the sorts of things that Miss knows how to soften. In New Orleans, after certain storms, there comes a moment when the whole city changes its breathing. The rain passes, the shutters drip, the brick darkens. The air, which has been tight and electric only minutes before, seems suddenly rinsed, softer, cooler, more willing to let the day begin again without all that pressure. The silver mist is something like that, but for the weather inside a person. I have watched many kinds of weather pass through human hearts. Tempest, certainly. Long, damp seasons of grief. Sudden flashes of joy that leave everything glowing for hours afterward. The brittle, dry crackle of worry when it has gone too long without rest. And what I have learned from window sills and porches and bedside chairs and moonlit courtyards is that humans try very hard even at resting. They furrow their brows at sleep. They negotiate with comfort. They turn stillness into another task that must be performed properly or else counted as failure by morning. It is a very exhausting way to be alive. You need not do that here. The boat is doing what boats like to do. The mist is doing what mist likes to do. The water is holding. That is enough. Some things are best left on the shore until morning, not abandoned, not denied, only left where they may wait without climbing into bed beside you. A ledger of tasks can wait. A small regret can wait. The unfinished sentence can wait. Even sorrow, when it is true sorrow, and not merely the mind poking at its own bruises, can sit down for a while and rest its elbows. Grief need not stand guard through every hour of darkness in order to prove it is real. The boat rocks lightly. The lantern sways. The mist gathers and gentles. The water holds us. There is nothing to do but be carried. If you have listened closely enough, you might have heard how quiet the mind has become. Not empty, never empty, just less crowded by marching feet. The old sentences that demand to be repeated have begun losing interest in their own sound. One by one, they are growing drowsy, trailing off midway through their shared patterns. Some worries, if they remain at all, have softened at the edges. They no longer stand like stern figures beneath gaslight. They have laid down. They have set their shoes aside. They have stopped demanding attention with quite so much posture. The boat rocks lightly. The lantern sways. The mist touches the rail in silver folds. The water keeps carrying us. And because the water keeps carrying us, you do not have to. That is one of the loveliest truths a night journey can offer. You do not have to guide the boat. You do not have to part the mist. You do not have to decide with perfect wisdom what thought may stay and what may go. The softer workings of the world are often more skillful than the mind at choosing what can be set down for a few hours. The body knows, the breath knows. I am here too. That matters. I am there at the bow, lantern light resting in my eyes, tail tucked close, keeping watch in the easiest way I know how. Not guarding against danger, for there is none here, only keeping company. There is a great comfort in being accompanied by a creature who asks nothing of you. Cats have always understood this. We do not improve sorrow by interrogating it. We do not improve weariness by making speeches. We sit nearby. We blink slowly. We lend the room a steadier rhythm. Sometimes that is the whole medicine. The moon lays down its silver path. The water receives whatever loosens. The mist gathers and gentles. Some passengers, in such moments, seem to feel their thoughts becoming like lanterns set gently afloat. Not lost, not extinguished, merely placed where they no longer need to be gripped so tightly. Some feel their worries unlacing like ribbons in water, loosening at one end first, then another, until the knot is still there, but no longer pulled hard enough to hurt. Some notice only that the breath has deepened, and the brow has unfastened, and the body has remembered, with great relief, that it does not always have to prepare for impact. Any of these are enough. All of these are enough. The boat rocks so lightly it feels like breathing. The lantern sways and settles. The mist touches the sides and draws away and touches them again. The water holds and holds and holds. Nothing true is taken from you here, nothing beloved, nothing essential, only the needless edge, only the overholding, only the small, hard habits of thought that mistake vigilance for love and tension for wisdom. The silver mist knows the difference. It leaves the heart intact and coaxes the clenched hand open, one finger at a time. So we remain here a little longer in that hidden hush, where the water holds us and the moon keeps watch, and the lantern breathes gold across the dark, and the mist, in the quiet, faithful way, lifted from the night whatever did not need to be carried any further until morning. After a while, though I could not have said when, I noticed the boat has turned. There was no moment of turning, no shift dramatic enough to name, no slow arc traced upon the water. We have simply become oriented differently, as dreams do when they are ready to soften into another shape. The lantern at the bow casts its honey-colored glow at a gentler angle now. The silver on the water has changed its shape. Even the mist seems to be lifting in small, thoughtful places, parting by degrees as though some quiet agreement has been reached. This is often how such journeys end, not with announcement, not with a bright little bell rung to tell the heart it must gather its things and prepare to re-enter the world of clocks and corners and names. Some journeys are kinder than that. Some simply begin without fuss to deliver you back with quieter hands than the ones that took you out. The boat drifts on, the lantern sways, the mist thins here and there, and slowly, very slowly, the idea of shore returns. First as a feeling more than a sight, a shape gathers beyond the silver, a nearness, a sense that the world has edges again, though gentler ones. Then comes a far lamp, no brighter than a firefly caught in amber, holding itself steadily somewhere ahead. Then the dark, clean line of a balcony suspended over shadow. Then the scent of warm stone rising beneath the river damp, that particular New Orleans perfume of old walls, cold brick, wet iron, and the day still sleeping somewhere inside the pavement. A distant street suggests itself next, not busy, not loud, only present. A place where shutters leaned inward and doorways keep their own counsel, and far off, so softened that it may have been memory returning to itself, there comes a single muted note of music, one note only. It hovers in the damp, brushes the edge of the mist, and fades so gently it seems less fit to end than to recline. The city is coming back, or perhaps you are. It makes little difference. What matters is that nothing feels crowded inside anymore. The rooms of the mind are not empty. They are simply quieter. There is space now between one thought and the next, enough space for Beth to pass through, enough space for rent to remember itself. The boat drifts further, though not much further. The lantern sways, the mist loosens. The city keeps returning in gentle pieces. Do not imagine that the silver mist keeps all softness for itself. It is not jealous in that way. It does not trap peace inside its folds, like a miser with coins in a locked drawer. No, it teaches the body how to remember. That is different. It lets the shoulders learn a slower language. It lets the breath recall its own depth. It shows the mind what it feels like when not every thought is required to stand upright at once. And once the body has known that, even briefly, it may find the path back again. New Orleans has always known how to return people to themselves by way of weather, music, water, and night, by rain tapping softly at shutters, by a trumpet heard from 3 streets over, by moonlight caught in balcony iron, by a river moving past in the dark with more patience than any sorrow, by a boat that asks nothing but softness. The landing begins to take shape ahead of us. Worn boards, old pilings, the little dark pocket where water meets wood and waits without impatience. Nothing there looks diminished. Nothing looks lost. The dock has remained itself in our absence. The city has remained itself too. And you, Cher, have remained yourself all along. Only the edges of strain have dulled. Only the sharpness has softened into something the night can carry a little more easily. The boat comes near with such quiet grace that the arrival feels less like stopping than like being set down carefully. The lantern rocks once. The water touches the hull. The boards wait. I rise, stretching one jaw forward, then the other, as cats and ghosts and old houses all know how to do. Then I leap lightly onto the dock. The wood gives the faintest sigh beneath me, warm still in places from the day. I turn at once to look back at you, tail lifting in a small dark curve, and wait there with the patient confidence of one who has never doubted for a moment that you would return differently than you left. Some nights are for walking. Some nights are for lanterns and thresholds and doors that open one careful inch at a time. And some nights, Cher, are for being carried. Tonight was a carried night. So if in dreams you hear water rocking lightly against wood, or glimpse a silver lantern through mist, do not worry that you have lost your way. You have only found one of the city's softer roads. The street of forgetting has more than streets. It has water and silver mist and quiet thresholds and small hidden passages for the overfull heart. The boat returns when it is needed. The lantern knows how to dim. The mist knows how to close like a curtain. My tail curls neatly around my paws. The water breathes beneath everything, and the city floats there at the edge of sleep, old and gentle and half made of tide. So rest now. Let the last of the silver fold around you. Let the boat remember the way. Sleep now, Cher. The boat knows the way, and tonight you do not have to.